Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
All right. They let you in? They ought to let you in. You had a ticket. Hello and welcome to the GSMC television podcast. We're part of the mighty GSMC podcast network. And I'm your peacefully protesting host, Howard Fletcher. As always, I'm joined by my trusted engineer, Jack the Black Pug. And we are positively honored and thrilled to be here with you once again. If you're new to the show, I'd like to give you a very, very warm welcome. Thank you for giving us a try. We appreciate you. We really do. There's a lot you can choose from, a lot of places that you can go to listen to podcasts, and there are a lot of other things you can do with your time than to listen to me blabber in your ear. So we're glad you're with us. We aim to please. Stick around. I'm sure you'll hear something that you like. That's the plan. We want you to keep coming back. And if you're one of our loyal return listeners, you know how we feel about you. You are truly the reason that I'm here. Let's have some fun. We have another cram-packed show for you today. Zack Snyder gives us a glimpse of the real Justice League. Trolls World Tour, that great movie, it's going to make its theatrical release stop after all. AMC, the movie theater chain, is getting ready to open. Masks are now mandatory. There's going to be some more information on that. And I'll always be bringing you breaking news. And since Billions is on break, there's going to be no recap today. I can feel your disappointment coming through the speaker, I think. Anyway, if you're ready, let's get started with some breaking ABC news. Here's an update from June 18th, 12 p.m. Pacific time. ABC released its fall lineup, with the broadcaster planning to be back to business as usual despite the production shutdown caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Guidelines were recently issued on how shows can resume production despite the pandemic, though a vast majority of the productions have not started up yet again. Here's a quote for you, quote, "We wanted to honor the current environment and be thoughtful, which is why we waited until this moment when we have more confidence in our ability to return scripted programming in the fall," and ABC Entertainment President Kerry Burke told Variety. Burke did acknowledge the chance that the schedule as it currently exists may not happen in the normal time frame. Well, she said, quote, "We hope it's a fall schedule. We're hoping it's our premiere schedule," end quote. Anyway, ABC's schedule remains largely unchanged, with few notable exceptions. First and foremost, season 16. That's right, I said season 16 of The Bachelorette, featuring Claire Crawley. But the old Claire Crawley, I believe she's 36. I think she's going to be the oldest Bachelorette ever, as if 36 is old, will air this fall on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Also at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. I guess if you know, it's on a delay, I guess. The season was originally meant to air in May of 2020, but it was pushed back due to the pandemic. In addition, the network has scrapped its Friday night comedy block, concentrating all of its comedy shows on Wednesday night instead. So if you wanted laughs on Friday, don't go to ABC. This season, fresh off the boat, An American Housewife aired on Fridays. Tuesday night's comedies will move and make way for The Bachelorette. Friday is Bachelorette night, I guess. ABC is also leaning heavily on unscripted fare. And you know what that means. That means reality shows, including Dancing with the Stars, Shark Tank, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and America's Funniest Home Videos. The network's previously announced new series orders are the drama Big Sky, comedy Call Your Mother, and a reboot of Supermarket Sweep. Now, I never even knew that there was a show called Supermarket Sweep, and this is a reboot. So those of you who have watched Supermarket Sweep and know what this is, please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com. I would appreciate it. And let's talk about it. Big Sky will air Tuesdays after The Bachelorette, while Call Your Mother will be held for mid-season. Supermarket Sweep will air at 8 o'clock on Sundays. New seasons of American Idol, The Bachelor, For Life, and Mixed-ish, which I didn't think was going to survive, but it did, will be premiering later in the season. Blackish was originally being held for mid-season, but ABC reversed course on Thursday, moving the show back to the fall schedule. Here's another quote. Quote, "We are incredibly grateful to Carrie, Dana, and Peter for recognizing the importance of Blackish in this moment and applaud them for making the necessary shifts to bring the show back as soon as possible," end quote, said Blackish creator Kenya Barris. Quote, "While the last few months have felt overwhelming at times, they have also underscored just how important it is that Black voices are not only heard, but empowered and amplified as well. And our Blackish team is humbled to be a small part of telling our stories and are excited to get back to these conversations," end quote. I appreciate that Blackish is on the air. Those of you who listen to this show know that I'm a member of the Black community, Black American community myself. However, there's always a however with me. I don't like putting extreme. I'm very happy that the show is there, and I'm glad for the representation and all of that. And I'm sure the creator of the show is happy that it's on the air, and it continues to be on the air. I don't want to put too much importance in black voices and the reflection of the Black community in a situation comedy on network television. That's all I'm saying. Okay? I don't think that the white families I see on situation comedies are representative of the white community. Do I learn about culture, white American culture, mainstream American culture on these television shows? Absolutely. You know, I was married to an immigrant, a woman from Lithuania. She learned a lot about American culture by watching television. So obviously there's a lot to be learned about, or something to be learned about, Black American culture on Blackish. However, as far as empowering people, no, I don't know about that. I think it's a very good place that's part of the cultural mix. I do. But I do this television podcast, but I think people put way too much importance on on entertainment and television. That said, I don't want to be naive to the fact that obviously people get their impressions and they come to their conclusions about people because of these representations on television. And I would much rather have a show like Blackish on than Amos and Andy. Okay? So I am very grateful in that respect. That said, I just hope people who watch the show realize that this is just a situation comedy and that Anthony Anderson is not me. That's all. ABC is now the third broadcaster to announce plans to return most of its lineup this fall. Both CBS and NBC previously announced similar plans. Fox and the CW have taken a different approach, planning instead to air acquired programming, with Fox also holding some of its 2020 mid-season shows for the fall. Quote, "We approached our scheduling process from an optimistic point of view," Burke says. "We didn't scramble and feel we needed to acquire shows from elsewhere. We really felt like we could return the whole schedule intact. But of course we needed to replace Modern Family, because Modern Family ended, and we wanted to create room to launch a couple of new hits. So ABC is trying its best to not bring on anything new and keep business as usual. And it's going to be interesting. I kind of like the CW's approach that they did go out and acquire some shows that weren't necessarily brand new shows. They ran on other streaming services. I mentioned it several times on this podcast, like Swamp Thing from the DC universe, and other thing. They got some Canadian programming as well, and I'll be interested in seeing that. ABC, I think, has enough. They're definitely larger than the CW. They have a larger pool of shows, a larger production company, so they don't have to do as much juggling as the CW. So I think both approaches are interesting. I'm looking forward to the CW. So here is some more breaking Kimmel news. After 18 years and 3,130 episodes, Jimmy Kimmel is taking a breather as host of Jimmy Kimmel Live. The ABC late night show will shift to guest hosts this summer as Kimmel takes a sabbatical. Now, for those of you who aren't as old as I am or not old enough to remember The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson did this often. It hasn't been so much the case in recent times. I think Ellen has been doing this as well. But once you get a show and you've been on for quite a few, I didn't really realize Jimmy Kimmel had been on for 18 years. Geez, time flies, y'all. It wears you down. And so, there have been several, or in the past, there were a few talk shows, The Tonight Show being one, where once a week they would have a guest host. And that would help break it up a little bit for people like Johnny Carson. But here, Kimmel's taking a sabbatical, and I'm sure it makes a lot of sense. Here's a quote. "There's nothing wrong. I'm healthy. My family's healthy. I just need a couple of months off," end quote, Kimmel said. Kimmel revealed on Thursday night's episode that this would be his last new show for the summer. He plans to take the next few months to spend more time with his family. He's already set to return in September and host the 72nd Emmys on Sunday, September 2nd. Talked about that last episode. Those might be a virtual Emmys. So while Jimmy's at home on his sabbatical, he might just have to zoom it up and do the Emmy Awards, which I think is a cool job. Here's another quote. "While Jimmy's gone, a cavalcade," another word I love, "a cavalcade of very kind and capable people will be filling in," the show said in a statement, although specific names have not yet been announced. The guest-hosted shows will start on Monday, July 6th. That's right after the fantastic 4th of July weekend. In 2017, Kimmel took time off for his infant son, who was born with a congenital disease and later underwent multiple open-heart surgeries. In May that year, Will Arnett, Anthony Anderson, who I just spoke of, in Blackish, Kristen Bell, and David Spade filled in. Then in November, it was Shaquille O'Neal, Dave Grohl, Channing Tatum, and Jennifer Lawrence. And in December, it was Chris Pratt, Tracy Ellis Ross, he got the double Blackish in, Neil Patrick Harris, and Melissa McCarthy. Kimmel has been hosting a 30-minute version of Jimmy Kimmel Live from his home since March, as the COVID-19 pandemic shut down studio-based productions. The show briefly moved to its old slot of 12:05 a.m. in order to move Nightline to 11:35. But since mid-April, Jimmy Kimmel Live has been back to its normal 11:35 p.m. slot. Kimmel also hosts ABC's revival of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which returns next season on Sunday nights. This is one of the reasons I really admire Jimmy Kimmel. I just think he's crafted a very good career with, I don't know, he might have acting skills. Maybe he can sing. Maybe he can dance. I don't know if he has, I don't think he's hilarious, side-splittingly hilarious, but he is a good performer, and he's a great host of a show like this, and he's done it quite well. And at this point in your career, you should be able to make this type of money, or good money, doing stuff like hosting Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which I'm sure is a pretty easy gig for him, and hosting the virtual Emmy Awards. And he's done all of this while also being able to talk smack to the president, which I like. So, Jimmy Kimmel, kudos to you. Looking forward to take your time off. You deserve it. Looking forward to seeing you on the virtual Emmy Awards, eating ham sandwiches between awards. Next, I'm going to be talking about Zack Snyder, a guy who, you know, he has his detractors and he has people who admire what he does. I think he can put together a very visually pleasing movie. Don't know if he drives the best narrative. However, he is going to be bringing his cut of Justice League, which was panned by critics and fans of DC, and yours truly, to HBO Max. And he gave us a little taste of it. So I'll be talking about that. And also, Trolls World Tour raises its ugly head from under the bridge. I will talk to you about that as well. You go get some refreshments. Thank you for listening. Be right back. We're going to pay some bills. You thirsty, Jack? Come on. All right. You ever watch Mixes, Jack? Ever watch it? You ever watch Justice League? Terrible movie. We are back. And as I said last segment, we're going to talk about Zack Snyder. Now, Zack Snyder is a director that caught my eye on 300. It was a remake of or an adaptation of a graphic novel about the Battle of Thermopylae, I believe. Thermopylae? Spartans. Spartans against Persians, that's what it was. And it was just visually very interesting. I mean, it looked just like a comic book almost, come to life. And then from there, he did Watchmen and also, you know, the Man of Steel and et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, as I said in the last segment, he makes these movies that are visually, I think, stunning. But the narrative is all screwed up, and the characterization sometimes is treated even worse. And he made a movie in 2017, Justice League, which was supposed to be the culmination of these movies in the DC universe. DC has been competing with Marvel forever in comic books and now in the theater. And because of the great success that Marvel had in constructing the MCU and with Avengers at that time, DC said, okay, we're going to come out with the Justice League and bring all of our premier characters together that we hurriedly put on the screen. So Zack Snyder made this movie. He didn't finish it, though. Joss Whedon finished it. He had a falling out with the studios. And the movie that was eventually released bombed, or it didn't do as well as they predicted. They turned a profit, and I think it earned probably close to $400 million. However, it didn't earn MCU money, okay, and they were disappointed with the outcome. Fans were disappointed. I was disappointed. I didn't like the movie at all. Zack Snyder has said that that's not the movie that he made. And there's been this Snyder cut that has been legendary. Has been whispers of a Snyder cut that's out there. And guess what? One exists. And it's going to come out on HBO Max. And director Zack Snyder on Thursday debuted a sneak peek of the mythical Snyder cut of his unreleased version of the 2017 superhero film, Justice League. The new footage, which runs at about 34 seconds, puts the spotlight on Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman as she comes across an artifact in a cave dwelling, because Wonder Woman's alter ego is an archaeologist professor, at least in the DC universe. Before the clip cuts to the villainous Darkseid, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor ominously narrates, "The bell already has been rung, and they've heard it. Out in the dark among the stars, ding dong, the god is dead." Another problem with Justice League is that Jesse Eisenberg is Lex Luthor, but that's a whole nother thing. The Snyder Cut, an extended version of the movie Justice League that was released, will debut on HBO Max next year, months before the original film was complete, Snyder stepped down as the director following a family tragedy. Joss Whedon, whose credits include The Avengers, was brought in to complete the movie. May I repeat, Joss Whedon, whose credits include The Avengers, was brought in to complete the movie. DC thought that he could put the little touch on it that would make it as successful as Avengers, but that was not to be. After Justice League was panned by fans for its inconsistent tone, which it was, and it didn't go together, comic book enthusiasts rallied for years using the hashtag release the Snyder Cut on social media to push for the release of Snyder's original version, which was reportedly a much darker take on the material. Justice League teams up Batman, who's played by Ben Affleck, Wonder Woman, who's played by Gal Gadot, as I said before, Aquaman, Jason Momoa, Superman, Henry Cavill, Cyborg, Ray Fisher, and The Flash, Ezra Miller. Again, just like Jesse Eisenberg, Ezra Miller is problematic as The Flash to me. The DC Extended Universe installment collected over $650 million at the box office worldwide. Oh, see, I was even wrong. See, it even made more money than I thought. However, it was considered a flop because it cost $3 million to make. Now, Hollywood economics always crack me up because they made 200%, over 200% on their investment. Okay. They didn't just break even. They got their money back. They doubled their money. Okay. And I just don't understand. They more than doubled their money. I don't, to want more than that, I think is not an unreasonable desire, but to be disappointed with $350 million of profit sounds pretty ridiculous. Momoa wrote on Thursday on Instagram that the best part about being Aquaman is that Zack Snyder created me so I get to see all this awesome shit before anyone. Jason Momoa, who has never held his tongue about anything, as you can tell, he's very pro this version being released. And many of the people who are involved in the movie want this to be released. And so hopefully it's a much better movie than what they came out with, than the Joss Whedon take. And I hate to, that if it comes out, I hope people don't start slamming Joss Whedon, because Joss Whedon is very good at what he does. It's just that he was asked to pick up a film that he didn't make and make it so, so it was more like The Avengers, and it really wasn't supposed to be that way. So anyway, look for that on HBO Max. That's one reason to get HBO Max. I think I will be getting HBO Max, not necessarily for this, but I'm very happy it's coming on there. Here is some breaking news about your friends and mine, Trolls. Trolls World Tour. The movie Trolls World Tour will get its big screen debut after all. The straight-to-video on-demand film, which inadvertently became the computer-animated face of the exhibition sector's coronavirus nightmare, is among a batch of library and short-lived theatrical releases set to grace UK cinemas when they reopen. Also slated to head back to cinema is Universal's Emma, which was released February 21st and placed on video on demand around the time of the lockdown in mid-March. The films are listed in a document that's drawn up by the Film Distributors Association, which includes around 450 titles set for movie theaters when they open after the 4th of July. Sending Trolls World Tour to cinemas, although it's yet unclear which movie chains are going to run this movie after its much ballyhooed video-on-demand debut as something of an olive branch by the studio, which publicly feuded with the likes of AMC theaters over the decision to go to video-on-demand, with the cinema chain at one point threatening, that's AMC, threatening to ban Universal titles entirely. I've talked about this a lot. which I think was a really stupid move by AMC Theaters. AMC CEO Adam Aron has since signaled in a recent earnings call that relations may be thawing with the studio, noting that it's in active dialogue with Universal around striking a deal. Gee, thanks, Aaron, for letting us know that you, a movie theater owner, have decided that you're going to allow Universal to run their movies in your movie theater that you need because, listen, AMC just filed for bankruptcy. AMC is broke, and they had no business talking smack to Universal. And now this guy's going to say, oh, our relations may be thawing. No, you're going with your hat in hand asking for these movies to run in your theaters. And Universal is more than happy to let you have Trolls World Tour, probably at double what they were going to charge you before. So, whatever. Other major releases that went to the video on demand route after limited theatrical runs pre-lockdown, but now slated to return to cinemas include Sony's Bloodshot. That's the Vin Diesel movie. I'm surprised they're bringing that one back. Blumhouse's Fantasy Island. Again, another one that got bad reviews. I'm surprised they're bringing that back. Bad Boys for Life. I understand them bringing that one back. The Will Smith, Martin Lawrence property, which I'm sure people will be going back. So, they'll get people to see it. Disney's Onward and Call of the Wild. I heard Call of the Wild wasn't all that great, but might as well bring it back. I probably didn't get a whole lot of video on demand business. Sonic the Hedgehog and Vertigo's The Assistant. In an interview that I saw on Variety earlier this week, the CEO of View Cinemas, that's a UK theater chain, Tim Richards, hinted that studios had been extremely generous in supporting cinemas as they await the release of new films such as Tenet and Mulan. Tim Richards is obviously a better businessman than John Fithian of the National Association of Theater Owners, who I always will take a shot at on this podcast, who bitched about Trolls World Tour going to video on demand in the first place. Yeah, I will never stop railing about Mr. Fithian on this podcast because he had the nerve to poke Universal in the eye for doing that instead of realizing they wanted to get their money back. One of the film's offerings will be a 4K release of Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, which has never before been screened to a cinema audience, having only been released via Disney Plus and Blu-ray in late March. The film will be shown at View Cinemas after they reopen. Now, I'm curious, and please email me again at podcasthoward@gmail.com. Is the fact that The Empire Strikes Back is in 4K a big deal to you? Because it's not to me. And I'm just curious if that's a draw. I mean, I really like The Empire Strikes Back. That's my favorite Star Wars movie. And I think, when I saw it, I never said, gosh, I like this movie, but I really wish it was a little sharper. I wonder what this movie would look like if it was just a little sharper, a little more crisp. I don't think that's going to be a thing. Now, people who were in the mood to go see The Empire Strikes Back and just haven't seen it in a while, this is a good time to see it in this 4K. But I just wondered if that's something to pull you back into the theaters. It probably wouldn't be for me. The UK government has yet to give the final green light for a July 4th opening, but sources, they told Variety, where I got this part of the article, that it's widely expected. Regal Cinemas and Picture House owner Cineworld confirmed earlier this week that they will open its venues in both the UK and the US on July the 10th. Now, here's a short list of films that are slated to return to cinemas in the UK and some of them in the US. And I hope they bring some of them in the US, but I'm going to read some of these, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think, because I think some of these are good choices for people who are fans of film and who are willing to take their life in their hands and going into a movie theater. First one is Blue Story. Now, understand, these are going into UK cinemas first. So this first one, Blue Story, is a British crime drama, which I wasn't familiar with. I looked it up on Wikipedia. It looks very good. That's going back to the theaters when they open. Also, they're going to be bringing back Christopher Nolan movies. So they're going to bring back Dunkirk, Inception, Batman Begins, and The Dark Knight. That should be interesting. They're going to bring back all the Fast and the Furious films. They're going to run the Harry Potter films. They're going to run the Hunger Games films. They're looking at running the Twilight films. How about that one? They're going to run the Matrix films. I would definitely go see that. They're going to run the Mad Max films. Okay, that's going to be the Australian Mad Max films, and also I guess there'd be the Charlize Theron film as well. But definitely the old Mad Max films. And 1917, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, and Parasite. All great movies. I saw 2 of them. Parasite, the best of that group, I think. Although Little Women's also a very good movie as well. Jojo Rabbit's a very good movie. They're all good movies. So that's the list. I'm glad to see that movies are coming back. However, I don't think they're going to come back big, at least for the next year or 2, until we get a vaccine. And why am I talking about this on the TV podcast? Because I think all of those movies I just named are going to be packaged up and sent to video on demand. Because streaming, I believe, is the way that this thing is going. Even if they open up all the theaters, even if we get a vaccine, I just think more people are getting acclimated to watching films at home, streaming, and unless it's a big budget film, unless a film like Dunkirk or The Fast and the Furious or something you need to see on a big screen, they're going to rather stream them at home. Next, I'm going to still stay with the movies. AMC theaters are reopening. I'll talk about that when I get back. Go get some refreshments. Talk to you soon. We're going to pay some bills. All right. Did you go see Twilight, Jack? I wouldn't see Twilight. I only saw one movie and it was on television. We're back, and like I said, I'm going to talk about AMC theaters now. Because AMC Theaters, the world's largest exhibitor, has unveiled plans to reopen after coronavirus forced it to close more than 600 venues in the United States for nearly 4 months. And that really almost broke the company. The company is expected to resume operations in 450 of those locations on July 15th and expects to be almost fully operational by the time that Mulan debuts on July 24th and Tenet starts on July 31st. As part of that process, AMC is reducing its seating capacity in order to help people socially distance. It's implementing new cleaning procedures, placing hand sanitizing stations throughout its theaters, that's a good move, and encouraging contactless and cash-free concessions. They're encouraging it, but they'll take your cash. Quote, "We didn't rush to reopen," AMC CEO and President Adam Aron said in an interview. Quote, "There were some jurisdictions in some states, such as Georgia and Texas, that allowed people to reopen theaters in mid-May. We opted to remain closed so we could give the country time to get a better handle on coronavirus. We wanted to use this time to figure out how to best open and how to do so safely," end quote. It's important to note that Georgia and Texas, mainly Texas though, but Georgia's been kind of on a plateau, up and down plateau. Those states or jurisdictions that decided to open up early in May, they're seeing coronavirus start to rise again. AMC's competitors, Regal and Cinemark, announced their own plans to reopen earlier this week, targeting a similar mid-July timeframe for when they expect to be fully operational. The exhibition sector, and particularly AMC, are under pressure to bring customers back to cinemas. Prior to coronavirus, there was a great deal of consolidation in the exhibition space, much of it made possible by debt financing. AMC's decision to acquire rivals such as Odeon Cinemas, UCI Cinemas, and Carmike Cinemas. Now, where I am right now in the D.C. area, we don't have UCI or Carmike Cinemas. We do have cinemas, Odeon Cinemas. Well, buying all of those cinemas left it heavily leveraged, and it has more than $5 billion with a B dollars in debt. In recent filings, and as reported on this podcast, AMC acknowledged that the coronavirus pandemic could push it into bankruptcy. Aron, their CEO, expressed confidence that the theater chain would be able to avoid Chapter 11 and would be able to have enough revenue to service its debt obligations. Quote, "In my heart of hearts, I think we can manage AMC through this crisis," said Aaron. "There are no guarantees and nobody knows what coronavirus will look like in the winter or how long it will take to get a vaccine. But I can tell you that we have a very able management team here, and we're going to make every effort to make sure that AMC continues to be well positioned as a leader of the movie theater industry," end quote. Well, I'm sure that's true. I mean, I've never, I can't say that I've had a bad experience at an AMC theater, and I'm sure they're going to do everything they can to continue to be in business. However, you can't control coronavirus. What it does, you can't control it, but it's harder to control if you continue to have people go to public places inside, like movie theaters. So they're kind of stuck. They're between the literal rock and a hard place. The company unveiled its reopening plan for U.S. theaters, which includes a slew of enhanced sanitary and social distancing measures developed in conjunction with numerous experts. AMC, the third largest circuit in the country. I almost said circuit in the city because I remember Circuit City. Said that it would strongly encourage customers to wear masks and require them to do so if ordered by local authorities. In an interview, this one was with Variety, Aaron elaborated and said he didn't want to make masks a requirement and be drawn into public controversy. Of course, just like Michael Jordan said, Republicans wear tennis shoes too. Quote, "The Trump campaign has made headlines around the world for not requiring supporters to wear masks. At a rally scheduled that was just yesterday at Tulsa, they didn't make people wear masks." Aaron's remark about not wanting to be drawn into public controversy sparked an immediate furor on social media, as you can imagine. As a result, in a statement on Friday, AMC said it quickly realized it hadn't gone far enough in its masks policy. And based on the outcry from customers, patrons are still expected to be allowed to take off their masks and eat their concessions, but based on that feedback, they're going to make masks mandatory. Which makes sense to those of us who've been paying attention about the things that are effective about coronavirus, or the spread of, to mediate the spread of coronavirus. Regal Cinemas also confirmed Friday that it would require guests to wear masks at its locations. Quote, "As related to our employees, guests will also be required to wear masks. Disposable masks will be made available as needed," the chain said in a statement. Thursday's backlash to AMC was unwelcome news for cinema owners in Hollywood as they ramp up again to release movies on the big screen. The plan had been, to even go this direction, was to convince customers that a theater is safe amid the ongoing novel coronavirus pandemic. But it's not. I mean, it's just common sense will tell you that, or it's very difficult to avoid germs in a closed space. That's just the thing. And so it's not like air travel. Sometimes you can't help but have to fly. So what you do, you mask up and you get your hand sanitizer and you if you're a religious person, you say your prayers. If you're an atheist, I guess you take some edibles and your Dramamine, and you sit there and you do your best not to catch the virus, to distance yourself, to stay away from droplets, etc. But in the theater, that's purely a voluntary situation. You're doing it for entertainment. So more people will opt not to do that until they know it's absolutely safe. Now, AMC, they're going to sell masks for $1 to guests who forgot to bring them. Okay, that's very nice of them. They should give them out. But Cinemark and Regal, they're just encouraging guests to wear masks. They're not requiring them in states where the area is not mandated. Now, where I live, in Silver Spring, Maryland, in our state, they are mandated in public places, in retail places, in movie theaters, if you go to a movie theater. If you look at the charts, you'll notice that the infection, the spread of infection is going down precipitously in Maryland. Okay? I think those things are correlated, but I digress. As it worked to establish and implement new procedures, AMC partnered with the Clorox Company and current and former faculty of Harvard University School of Public Health. On their advice, the theater chain said that it's going to heavily lean on technological solutions, such as deploying electrostatic sprayers, HEPA vacuums, and upgraded MERV 13 ventilation filters, which would eliminate airborne particles and reduce the chance that COVID-19 will spread. Other procedures being implemented include cleaning auditoriums between each showtime and allowing extra time between screenings for disinfection, blocking out every other row of seats to decrease congestion, pushing guests to use online ticketing and kiosks to limit interactions with staff, and designing various points within theaters for one-way foot traffic. Okay, I want you to remember that paragraph, because why am I doing this on the television podcast? I'm not doing this to... Listen, I wish the best for AMC, and I look forward to the day that I can go to a theater and I can feel comfortable in it. But all of these procedures, the more I stack up, might make you feel safe if you just absolutely, positively have to go to a theater. You got to see this thing on the big screen. But if you don't, which I think is going to be the case for many people, for certain movies, they're going to say later, I don't need to go through all this hassle. I just want to see the movie. And I also don't want to pay, $20 to get in and $20 for a bag of popcorn to have to go through all this rigmarole. I can just get the movie for that one $20, and then the other $20 I can order a big Domino's combo. AMC says it plans to increase capacity in its theaters in stages. At first, AMC will only make 30% of the capacity available every showtime. Over time, that will increase to 40% and then to 50% capacity. AMC hopes that it will be able to have half of its auditoriums full by Labor Day. That is pretty optimistic, and projects that it will be at full capacity by Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. In order to educate theatergoers about new measures, AMC is participating in an industry-wide marketing push that has been orchestrated by talent agency CAA and overseen by former IMAX Entertainment chief Greg Foster. The company is planning its own promotional efforts as well. Tenet, the Christopher Nolan sci-fi thriller, had originally hoped to kick off moviegoing when it opened on July 17th last week, but as we heard, it's been pushed back to July 31st. Now, as I reported last show, instead of Tenet being released on July 17th, Warner Brothers is going to release Inception. Now, here's the deal, and I said this last show, and I'll say it again for those who didn't hear. What I think is going to happen is they got a number in mind that they think Inception should make. And if it makes that number, which I don't know what it is, and I'm not even going to suggest what it is, but they have a number. And if it hits that number, they're going to go on with the plan. But if for some reason Inception falls short and it doesn't make the money they think it should make, then all these plans are going to get pushed back, because they are not Universal, Warner Brothers, any of these studios. They are not going to release a big budget movie that they invested hundreds of millions of dollars in just to watch it flounder and then peter out because people are not going to the movies. They want to make sure that people go in there, and on the first month of the month, they're going to be selling out, which might be possible if it's only 30 to 50% of the seats in there. I think sellouts are quite a big possibility. But if people aren't deciding that they would rather not go to see Inception, that's the thing. Then they're going to say, okay, we're not going to risk Tenet. We're not going to risk Mulan. And we're just going to have to wait until we get a vaccine or things get better. So that's it. I had to read about AMC. I had to put that on the show because I've talked about, this whole theater thing ad nauseum, I know, for those of you who are regular listeners on this show. And I've also talked about AMC deciding to ban Universal, or saying they were going to not pick up Universal films because Universal decided to take Trolls World Tour of all movies and put it on video on demand, and they decided to throw down the gauntlet on that animated garbage. So if I'm calling it garbage, I'm sure kids out there loved it. Okay. But AMC is getting ready to open. So what I want to know is, are you guys going to go to the theaters? If these, you heard all the plans that they are making to make it safe for you to go, or would you prefer just to do streaming at home? I know you wouldn't prefer it. I mean, I'm a fan of the big budget, big screen Christopher Nolan experience, so I don't want Tenet to go straight to video on demand. But I also, if Tenet were to be released this weekend, would I go? Probably not. I wouldn't. We'll see. Let's see what happens to all those people who went to see The President in Tulsa. If infections don't spike in Tulsa and that isn't a big catastrophe, then maybe things will go fine. We'll see. Maybe some good will come out of that rally. Next, I'm not going to be going over Billions because Billions is in hiatus. So, breaking news time next segment. Go get some refreshments. We're going to pay some bills. Thank you very much for listening. Be right back. All right. Netflix. You stream, Jack? All right, here we go. Welcome back. I said last episode I didn't know what I was going to do this segment because usually I would be recapping Billions, but Billions is on a hiatus because of coronavirus. So what I decided to do was see what my binging options would be on Netflix. And the website Digital Trends made a list of the 50 best Netflix show to binge right now. And it was a recent article, about a week ago it ran. And so because I was going to make a list like this, I thought I'd look and see what they had on their list. And because, as I say on this podcast many times, you can't watch everything, I looked for shows on their list that, of course, I would have selected myself, but I wanted to add a few that I haven't seen, but are series that I've been meaning to get around to eventually that sounded good, and I wanted to offer those to you, or at least suggest those to you too. I didn't want this just to be what Howard thinks you should be doing, should be binging right now on Netflix. I do want to give you fair warning that there will not be any mention of Tiger King on this list, just so you know. I have selected 15, and I hope I have enough time to get through them. Want to hear it? Well, here it go. These aren't in any particular order. They are just in the order that they're in. Number one, but it's not necessarily number one, is Black Mirror. Okay? I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this series. Each episode of Black Mirror tells a single story with a theme of modern and near-future technology running through each unnerving tale. It's often compared to The Twilight Zone for its episodic nature. And just like that classic, some of the stories will leave you sitting and staring at a blank television, wondering what you just saw. Beyond all the thought-provoking and mind-bending and world-building, the acting and the aesthetic is real smart, and it's very nuanced. It's definitely worth the watch. Like any anthology show, though, some episodes are better than others. So they're not 100% great, but overall I like the series. It was created by a guy, Charlie Brooker, who I think is very talented. There are 5 seasons of Black Mirror on Netflix. The Witcher is the next one. The Witcher is based on the popular fantasy series. Netflix's Witcher follows Geralt of Rivia, and that's Henry Cavill's character. He's a monster hunter with magical powers, known by most of that world as a witcher. Over decades, Geralt hunts monsters for gold, crossing paths with the cunning sorceress Yennefer and the refugee princess Ciri, whose fate is bound tightly to his own. Okay, I watched maybe almost one whole episode of this. Didn't seem to be my cup of tea. Although I'm going to give it another chance. If there are 2 seasons on Netflix, I know people who've watched it and said it's great, and some others who had the same impression that I did. Next is The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Not far from Riverdale, where Archie Andrews and his friends live, sits the town of Greendale, a place where we are told it seems like Halloween is year-round. It's here that teen witch Sabrina lives, juggling her ordinary life as a high schooler with her extracurricular activities practicing the dark arts. Sabrina is enjoying the best of both worlds, at least until her 16th birthday, when she must sign away her soul to the Dark Lord and cast off her mortal life. Now, I watched 1 season of this because I like Michelle Gomez, and Michelle Gomez is an actress who plays Madame Satan on there. I think she's the best thing on the show. But I took a break, and I never returned to it. I just didn't have time. But I will, if I have nothing else to do. There are 4 seasons of this show on Netflix. It's a quite obviously a popular show. So if it sounds good to you, you should check it out. Next one is Stranger Things. Okay. Those of you who listen to my show know that I'm not a fan of this show, not because it's not good, just don't like the genre. Here's the description that they gave. There are pieces of Stephen King, Steven Spielberg, and John Hughes strewn throughout Stranger Things. And the result is a show that will feel immediately familiar to people who grew up with that source material. The acting and direction are superb, according to this article, giving the most derivative scenes some heft. 3 seasons of Stranger Things on Netflix. Check it out. Here's one that I did watch. You. It's the digital age. It's easy to let your personal information slip into unsavory hands. For bookseller Joe Goldberg, played by Penn Bagley, technology makes it easy to stalk the object of his affections, a woman named Guinevere Beck. Now, despite its dark premise, You is darkly comedic, probing the vapid culture of New York's bourgeoisie, social scene with characters who are exaggerated examples of millennial excess. I like this show. It was kind of addicting. I didn't expect to like it, and I ended up watching the whole thing. There are 2 seasons on Netflix. It's worth the watch. The next show on your binge list is Street Food. If you love the best cooking shows, but you're tired of seeing buttoned-up celebrity chefs in pristine kitchens, how about a show that examines the food of the people? Street Food travels the world to explore how chefs from various cultures cook street food. The first season focuses on various Asian countries, including Thailand, Japan, and Singapore, interviewing experts and filming local vendors. And so there's only 1 season of that on Netflix, but I've heard it's pretty good. Another cooking show, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. In 2017, Samin Nosrat published Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, a cookbook based around the idea that those 4 concepts are fundamental elements in which flavor is built. Nosrat's culinary alchemy is now on full display in her Netflix series of the same name, which follows the chef as she tours the world, exploring the cuisines of various countries and how they exemplify her grand, unified theory of flavor. There's 1 season of that. My partner Joan watches that. She says it's a very good show. So I trust her. Dirty Money. Netflix's documentary series Dirty Money brings together a number of documentarians, including Alex Gibney, who did Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room, and Erin Lee Carr. She did Mommy Dead and Dearest, to delve into the shady dealings of big business around the world. Dirty Money is an incisive exclamation of the behavior businesses will engage when nobody's looking, and sometimes even when people are. There are 2 seasons of Dirty Money on Netflix. You should check it out. Here's one that I watched, Wild Wild Country. This documentary series, Wild Wild Country, follows a fascinating yet obscure episode in American history. The rise and fall of I'm going to mispronounce this, the Rahashin Purim, a religious community that sprang up in remote central Oregon in the 1980s and was built around the teachings of a guru named Bhagwan Shi Rajneesh. The group's cultish tendencies grated on the locals and the tensions rose. The Rajneeshis became more militant, attempting to hijack the voting process in Antelope, Oregon. and even staging a bioterror attack. Expertly crafted and highly informative, Wild Wild Country is a sharp exploration of how cults develop and why they create friction with mainstream America. It's just one season. It's very good. You should watch it if you like that type of thing. It's an interesting character study. Ugly Delicious. Chef David Chang has built a career on bucking culinary authority, and his Netflix series, Ugly Delicious, finds the restaurateur waging total war on the concept of authenticity. The first episode is a great example of the show's thesis, as it examines the ways in which chefs around the world have taken a simple dish like pizza and reinvented it. Ugly Delicious is less about gorgeous shots of cooking than it is about the way culture shapes cuisine, and the show is conscious of how different styles of food are tied to ethnicity. A conversation between two Italian-American pizza chefs takes a sorrowful turn as they reflect on the disintegration of old Italian-American communities and the fact that pizza is now more American than ever. Although Chang is not always on screen, his presence always comes through in the show's dynamic energy. There are 2 seasons of Ugly Delicious on Netflix. Sounds pretty good. Next is The Keepers. The streaming service's true crime streak continues with The Keepers, a haunting investigation into the murder of Sister Kathy Sesnick, a nun and Baltimore school teacher who was found near a garbage dump in the winter of 1969. The documentary follows the efforts of her 2 former students, Gemma Hoskins and Abby Schaub, as they uncover why someone would murder her. The Keepers is no simple whodunit, however. The documentary's focus quickly expands from Sesnick's murder to the atmosphere of Seton Kehoe High School, where it becomes apparent that sexual abuse was systematic, a scandal Sesnick may have tried to stop. Those who want a satisfying tale of justice may want to look elsewhere, but those who want to see how institutions can work to cover up corruption will find The Keepers to be a disturbing case study. And there's only 1 season of that, The Keepers. Next one is The Twilight Zone, and this isn't the Jordan Peele Twilight Zone, this is the original Twilight Zone, one of the most influential television series of all time. Rod Serling's Twilight Zone is an anthology series, with each episode telling a unique story in the realms of sci-fi, horror, and some mix thereof. Don't let the archaic props and the special effects deter you because they're pretty prehistoric. The Twilight Zone is every bit as brilliant today as it was when it first aired. And there are 5 seasons of it. There are a lot of episodes of The Twilight Zone. It's always good to kind of scatter them out. I wouldn't sit down and binge 5 seasons of The Twilight Zone, but it's always something if you just want to kill. There are 30-minute episodes and there are 60-minute episodes too, and you should know that as well. So go check out some old Twilight Zone if you haven't seen it. It's in black and white, but it's worth the watch. And the last 2 on my list I really like. The first one is Twin Peaks. This cult classic of the early 90s came from the mind of director David Lynch. After homecoming queen Laura Palmer is murdered, FBI agent Dale Cooper arrives in the small Washington town to investigate. Weirdness ensues with everything from homicidal demons and cryptic dreams to doppelgangers of dead people and an FBI agent who really likes cherry pie and a damn fine cup of coffee. Twin Peaks was a revelatory series in its heyday, and it still holds up thanks to its uniquely eccentric characters and memorable moments. Even if the murder mystery fizzles out eventually, you should watch it. There are 2 seasons of Twin Peaks. It's good. Check it out. And last but not least, a show I've mentioned on this podcast before. In fact, in the last episode, Hannibal. The NBC series takes another look at everyone's favorite cannibal, Hannibal Lecter. The character made famous in Thomas Harris's trilogy of novels and 1991's Silence of the Lambs. Hugh Dancy plays gifted criminal profiler Will Graham, whose unique way of thinking gives him the ability to empathize with anyone, even psychopaths. While pursuing a particularly difficult case with the FBI, however, he decides to enlist the help of psychiatrist Hannibal Lecter. And he's played by this guy Mads Mikkelsen, who you've seen in other movies probably. He is excellent. I mean, he plays him differently than Anthony Hopkins, which is good because you don't want someone who plays him the same way. But his Hannibal Lecter is just as terrifying in a different way than Anthony Hopkins. Really good. Their partnership flourishes, and it soon seems that there is no villain they can't catch together. Unfortunately, Lecter harbors a dark secret, and his mind continually edges toward the dark side until he has more in common with the criminals that they hunt, then Will understands. Something that they highlight in this series is Dr. Lecter's ability as a gourmet chef. And so they have some spectacular meals in this show. Unfortunately, we know what the protein is in it, but they don't show him necessarily butchering people. They just show him as he garnishes and presents these beautiful meals, and his guests enjoy them. And the show is just very good. It's a little gory. So if you don't, because they are forensically looking at terrible murder scenes of serial killers. So if that type of thing bothers you, you shouldn't watch this show. But if you can get past that, the rest of the show is really well done. I highly recommend Hannibal. So that's it for this list of the best things to binge on Netflix right now. Hope you've heard something that you like and that you might go check it out. And I want to thank you for listening to the GSMC Television Podcast, brought to you by the mighty GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write us a nice review. That really helps us. We're trying to make the show grow. And also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that would be fantastic. Remember to email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com with any requests for the show. To cover, if there are any shows you want me to cover, any feedback you have for me, I'd like to hear that. And also I read all email on the show. So please send me one. Listen, I know we are in some strange and challenging times right now. Let's all try to pull together to get through this. We are still in a worldwide pandemic, no matter how much we're opening up and things are being relaxed. So remember to please wash your hands often. Limit your distance between people if you can. I know everyone wants to get, we're tired of being alone, so I get that. Just try to limit your personal interactions with people, and please wear a mask. Wearing a mask is not a political statement, people. It's just a way for us to try to get through this thing until we can get a vaccine, or we can at least reduce the spread. Just please wear a mask if you go out of the house. Have a safe and fun week. I'll see you again on Friday, when I will be recapping Hightown on Stars. So until we meet again, please stream with care. And Jack and I love you guys. Be kind to one another. See you soon. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.